Good morning or afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another weather forecast here by Adrian's Weather Forecast. And in today's video, we're going to be doing a severe weather forecast for today's severe weather threat and potential for a severe weather outbreak in the far north part of the United States in the upper Midwest, including very close to the Canadian border here, so Minnesota and South Dakota, and even portions down towards the traditional plains towards Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska. You guys are also going to be in a severe weather threat for today, but this outlook is definitely very weirdly shaped. I mean, when do you typically think of as a moderate that close to Canada and that far up in the United States? So definitely, those in north and central, basically central, much of northern, even southwestern Minnesota, you guys definitely have to be on a big lookout, as well as portions of eastern South Dakota here. We are looking at a tornado and a wind-driven moderate risk here, so we could very well see the potential for some pretty large and possibly destructive tornadoes today, and as well very significant wind, especially as it upscales overnight, and as well going to be watching out for potential for some destructive hail. But without further ado, let's get in the forecast. So the day one moderate includes around 1.2 million people, so it is in a pretty much rural area considering the square miles that it does cover about 39,500 square miles. Um, as you can tell, the population is pretty small considering the how large it is. It does include areas like St. Cloud, Minnesota, Watertown, South Dakota, but other than that, you get into more rural areas such as Brookings, Hibbing, and Wilmer. Not very common or well-known cities here, except for maybe St. Cloud and Watertown. And then the enhance is actually pretty large as well. Kind of, it's obviously surrounding the moderate risk, but then we have a little spine or a little flow, like a branch that branches out towards Kansas and Missouri and even southern Nebraska there. And that's where we're missing as well your potential for a dry line threat, and as well going to be watching out for, as well, put the possibility of 10% worthy of tornadoes, as well going to be seeing pretty significant hail threat down there as well. But your wind threat will stay pretty far up there once you see that QLCS, once it kind of bows out later tonight up there. But yeah, definitely a pretty widespread cover for severe weather today, without a doubt. So as you can tell, pretty weird outlook, and it's pretty much centered towards much of the northern U.S. and northern plains, as we have a pretty strong mid-level cyclone moving up there. As it becomes lee of the Rockies, it's going to definitely amplify, and it's really gonna help play out for today's risk. So here's the overall tornado risk for today, and it's definitely a pretty odd one. I mean, you have two areas of 10%, and one's like very far from the other. So you obviously your Kansas tornado risk is pretty far from your main risk up there towards that 15%. So definitely a pretty weird outlook. So like if you live in Topeka, Kansas, or even near St. Joseph, or just in western Iowa, you guys are at 10%. You guys are like, what the heck? I mean, yeah, but that's where you're going to be seeing your two risks. You're going to be seeing kind of towards your actual service low up there towards that 15, and then you have kind of your dry line threat, and that's going to be down there towards Kansas and Missouri, and even portions there of even Oklahoma. But obviously, your main threats will be obviously in your 10s and above. However, again, we have a very widespread 5%, and your 5% are actually connected. So we have a 5% all the way from Minnesota and beyond towards Canada, all the way towards areas in southern Kansas. So pretty widespread cover for tornadoes today. So that's why it's definitely pretty important. Memorial Day, I don't know exactly when Memorial Day is. Was it yesterday or today? I have no idea. Either way, the holidays are here for Memorial Day, so definitely a lot of people out, and that's going to be definitely something to keep in consideration, that you may want to plan ahead, because there's a pretty widespread and significant tornado threat today, especially in Minnesota and South Dakota, where we have a 50% SIG, which includes around just under a million people, including St. Cloud, Watertown, Wilmer, Brookings, and Buffalo, Minnesota. And then our just general significant severe is going to remain up there towards the upper Midwest, and not in that 10% in the Iowa, Missouri, and Kansas area. So our 6 is just going to include the 10 and 15 up there in the Midwest. That's kind of, we're going to be seeing potential for your EF2 pluses. I'm not really sure if you're going to be seeing that or that potential down there near Kansas and that other 10%, which is why it's not a SIG. But our general SIG for tornadoes include 2.5 million people. So that is a lot of people that are under a 10 SIG plus risk for tornadoes. Our wind threat is going to be another big moderate driver for this risk, and it's actually going to be the reason why this moderate is the size it is. So obviously we're not going to be seeing a 15 SIG worthy tornado risk all the way up there near far northern Minnesota all the way up 10 SIG, but our 45 SIG is the reason why we have a moderate all the way up there, as that's going to be seeing the potential eventually later tonight for upscale growth, and that's going to bring in overall very significant wind threats. We have really good some pretty good decape. We do have some pretty good we do have a pretty good pocket of dry air and the mid levels there as well. We are going to be seeing some pretty good ratios between temperature and dews. We're going to be seeing some pretty good overall lapse rates. We are going to be seeing pretty much all of that up there in northern Minnesota, so definitely could see a pretty good severe weather risk, as well as some really strong 0-1 kind of bulk shear there as well. So definitely a pretty good habitat developing up there in Minnesota for a wind risk as well. But overall, in your premature cells as well, in the early stages of today, you're also going to be seeing some pretty significant winds. So that's why our 30% for winds actually pretty widespread there, all the way towards near Pierre and not Pierre, sorry, near Michelle, near where else? I'm trying to think other cities. I'm blanking out here. Michelle, Sioux City, Elk Point, all the way over there in South Dakota. And our 45 SIG is our SIG for winds is actually pretty significant. Actually, we do have a 15 SIG, we do have a 30 SIG, we do have a 45 SIG, and our SIG in general includes around just above 6 million people here, including the metropolitan area of the Twin Cities, as well including Des Moines, Sioux Falls, and Bloomington. So pretty widespread risk for wind. Now wind risk will definitely be the most widespread when it comes to population. And there are hail. We could very well run the possibility of some some damaging and destructive hail. I'm not mean to say gorilla hail. We're probably not gonna be seeing gorilla hail today. I hope not, but we are gonna be seeing destructive hail in general. And this is another reason why our enhanced risk goes all the way down there near Kansas. And that's because of the wind risk here. So that is generally why our enhanced is connected the way it is, even though our tornado probabilities aren't. That's because of the hail. You're going to be seeing some really good lapse rates. You're going to be seeing some really good amount of instability building up here. Some really good lapse rates with some significant amount of instability, and as well as significant cooling with height. So we will be seeing some pretty good environment for some large hail. And I want to give you guys an overall summary. I'm not going to get really deep into the discussion because I don't want this video to be long. I know it's really long enough right now, but numerous severe thunderstorms are forecast across parts of the northern plains and upper Mississippi Valley, with more scattered to isolated activity southward into the central plains today into tonight. Large to giant hail, 60 to 80 mile-an-hour gusts, and a few long-tracked intense tornadoes are possible. So they mentioned long track and possibly intense tornadoes for today, which is definitely pretty alarming when you see that wording here. And the wording is definitely, I'd say, pretty much higher when it comes to the 13Z updates. So this today would not go high. I'm not saying that, but they definitely did amplify their wording compared to the last update. But this will not go high. I do not think we have enough. I don't want to say confidence, but I want to say even the SPC mentioned it. There's a kind of a question of kind of what mode you're gonna be seeing, whether it's gonna be a messy mode, when it's going to kind of bow out into a QLCS, all that. There's a lot of questions here. So I think a 15 SIG is pretty safe, and I don't think we need anything high, whether it's wind or tornadoes. I do not think anything should go high today, and it will not go high today unless we have an emergency update for this event going absolutely insane. But I think today is going to be moderate worthy here. Maybe a medium end moderate, maybe a high end moderate, but do not see anything when it comes to high risk. But let's go ahead and look at the overall kinematic synoptic for just your overall synoptic setup. So you're missing a pretty strong mid-level cyclone up here, which is actually just becoming lee of the Rockies, and that's going to actually help amplify cyclogenesis going on here. So you're going to be seeing kind of your 500 millibars going to start, your trough's going to start to really amplify. And this is your typical plains. This is your typical plains 500 millibar. I know it's a little bit different towards your Dixie. So Dixie's 500 millibar are a little bit more. I'd say kind of like. I'd say your 500 millibars for kind of Dixie are kind of more like that, kind of more amplified and more like a U, while your more like a straight up U kind of, but your planes updates are usually kind of I say sideways U's are the way to say it here, and this is just typical how your planes are, and that's why your planes are typically oriented. Your wrists for planes are typically oriented like this, or that's typically why kind of your what's it called your wow I cannot that's why your skew t not your skew t's your photographs are typically more like that, while your Dixies are more like that. So this is kind of typical planes up. This is typical plane setup here. This is kind of 101, and this is a pretty significant synoptic setup here when it comes to your kinemax. You have a very strong 500 millibar, 500 millibar jet here. We're talking about 80, and eventually possibly over 90 knots here. So by 23Z and 0Z, you're starting to see nearly 90 knots, kind of moving straight up into this warm sector. We're seeing some really strong southwesterly flow, and there's kind of your mid-level cyclone. This is a really strong cyclone, and this is going to really be kind of like the reason why this event is the amplitude it is. The amplitude it is, and not only that, our 850 millibar, our second stream of flow, is going to be basically just as strong as that, and even stronger. So we look at our 18Z, we look at our 19Z, you kind of see 44 knots, but watch as it amplifies right when the event starts to really play out here. By 23Z, you're starting to see now 61 knots, 63 knots. We are talking a very strong 850 millibar flow. This is typically not something you really see for planes. You don't typically see your 500 millibar and 850 millibar typically aren't as strong like this. Typically you see these values in Dixie, but in the planes you typically see kind of a 40 to 50 knot 850 millibar. But this is we're talking 65 in some places, and even here this was 66, possibly even higher. I mean, this is a really significant and kind of a just monstrous cyclone here. So you're going to be seeing you're going to be seeing 70 knots, or not 70 knots, 55 to 65 knots from the south from your 850 millibar, and they're talking like 90 knots from the southwest with your 500 millibar. So really strong perpendicular streams of moisture as well. With this 850 millibar, you're going to be seeing a lot of moisture, and that's why your warm sector is the way it is, and that's why your warm sector is this far north, is because of how extreme that flow is. Let's go ahead and get a look here at the this is our theta E. We want to look at our dew points here. Well, I guess we could look at theta E a little bit later, but let's go ahead and look at our warm sector. So here's 18Z, 20Z. I mean, there's your low level cyclone right here in eastern South Dakota. So you are gonna be seeing some potential for some triple point madness over here, because there's your dry line practically right here. There's your dry line. You can see the drastic change with the vector staying the same. You go from 64 to 49 like that. So there's your dry line. You're gonna be seeing our triple point basically right here in South Dakota. Could definitely be seeing something as early as 20Z. By 20Z, you're not going to be seeing kind of your overall tornadic storms, really, your main tornadic storms. These are going to be kind of more hailers, maybe some strong winds. This is going to be kind of your multicellular supercells start to develop here. Kind of you're beginning to see your supercellular mode develop. You can kind of see this is going to start in kind of these first cells are going to start to really take advantage of that large pool of instability here in South Dakota, as well even southwest Minnesota. So you're not going to be seeing kind of your ideal scary photographs. However, as early as 20Z, we are going to start seeing our scary streamwise photographs. And that's definitely something very interesting, that we're seeing our monstrous photographs that you see at the main event before the main event even starts. So this is kind of showing you the severity of this setup that we have. Perfect streamwise vorticity, perfect kind of orientation with our vectors. We have everything's there before the main event even starts, and that's definitely why this is a pretty high end event here, because everything's kind of really there already. I mean, look at this 20Z sounding here in southwestern Minnesota. I know it's a little bit contaminated, but look at this photograph. Perfectly streamwise. You're going to be seeing this moving practically east-northeast at around 40-ish knots here. That's typical for your planes. And you look at that 2,600 mixed layer cave, 3,800 surface base cave. Look at the Lilta index at -11, pretty unstable there. And then look at your SRH. It's getting there from your surface at 1 kilometer, so around 248, and that's definitely pretty good. And look at your lapse rates. Your surface to 3 kilometer lapse rates are 7.1, and then your 3 to 6 are 7.9. So definitely really good lapse rates there to see your large halos in those first cells. And then as we get to around 21Z, that's when you kind of start to see this main event now becoming pretty much widespread all across Minnesota. You're going to start seeing kind of your supercells all over the place. This could be the day where you see you can see a random cell in the middle of east central Minnesota that could very well drop a monster tornado. I mean, that's going to be the type of day there. You can see any of these cells are in the environment to drop something significant. I mean, look at this here. You see a pool of 72 degrees there. I mean, when you see 72 degrees dew points in Minnesota, and look at this, you see this is a typical, just everything's backed. I mean, you have these back southeasterlies. I mean, not even to mention, look at these southeasterlies. These are not like barely southeasterlies. These are your typical southeasterly vectors here, and that's showing you that we have these backed at the surface, and they strongly veer, very strong veering here at 850 millibars, and that does have to part because of that significant warm air advection we have going on here. So very significant setup here. Again, even all the way up to east central Minnesota. Look at this photograph, just typical. We have slight contamination, but look at these very strongly back to the surface, very strong veering. This is actually very well not elevated. This is pretty good low LCL and LFC right stacked on each other. Look at this. You have 73 knots between your surface and 6 kilometers. You do have 43 between your surface and 3 kilometers. We do have some pretty good instability here. And then your SRH between your surface and 3 kilometers is 365, which is not the highest, but again, your SRH really won't necessarily determine every single little thing, although it does help. It gives a determination how your updrafts are and whether they're significantly rotating. But this is a pretty good warm sector, and then again, it starts to really upscale. You can kind of start to see some kind of cold pool madness going up there in northern Minnesota. So basically, after around 23s, you start to see kind of this overall transition towards a QLCS. So you're going to be seeing a pretty, I wouldn't say a short time, but we're going to be seeing only a few hours of your main tornado activity. However, this main tornado activity is going to be extremely widespread, so we can't rule out the possibility of something today. Let's now go ahead and look at the overall warm air advection again. You can see some pretty good warm air advection on 18Z here, already developing kind of along that edge right there of the kind of warm fronts, and you see that really good warm air advection starting to allow for overall your pretty just in general confluence. You're gonna be seeing some pretty good low level convergence. You're gonna be seeing your upper level divergence. So you're gonna be seeing kind of your typical setup here for a severe weather outbreak. And then by look at this 21Z, when this event starts to really, I'd say, reach its peak or start in the rising and getting close to the climax of the activity and the rising action, see a lot of pretty much a lot of warm air advection going on here. So definitely gonna be seeing your good confluence around here. You're gonna be seeing some pretty good positive vorticity advection. You're probably gonna be seeing some really good as well convergence going on here as well. Some mass flux convergence. So you guys gonna be kind of right along your that's gonna be kind of right along ahead of your cold front, or yeah, right not too far along your cold front. So that's gonna kind of be pushing towards this warm sector. And with this warm air advection, we're gonna be seeing some really strong veering at 850 millibars, which is gonna help obviously help keep the storms kind of rising as well, and rising in a mature tornadic supercellular way, and not in a, if you have any backing or anything like that, your veer back veer, anything like that, that's going to really help interfere. But we're not going to be seeing any rear back veer. We're going to be seeing the back of the surface, and then the rest of the way it's strongly veered. So that's where you're going to get kind of your general beautiful streamwise vorticity and your beautiful streamwise photographs. And speaking of streamwise photographs, it's exactly what we're looking at right now. So here's a look at 18Z. Here you can see your surface-based cape is going to be just absolutely crazy when it comes to the hour. So we're already at 18Z here. You're already talking about values at mid 3000s. And look at these photographs. You're starting to get these overall. You can see them developing here. You can see the photographs that are pretty much have a pretty strong kind of direction towards the northeast, northeast. That's what we want to see, that kind of that the direction your photographs are pointing in. It's exactly what you're gonna start seeing. And then by 19Z and 20Z, you kind of get the point. 20Z is just looks like absolutely like your very scary outbreak. Here you're talking like 4,000 joules per kilogram at the surface. And look at your photographs right here. Let's just click anything random here, and you can kind of see the overall shape of your photograph is. Let's click like right on this one. You can kind of see again. That is a this is actually pretty weird shaped. But you can kind of see this. This is your ideal kind of planes photographs that you see right here. Again, you kind of see your little. You can see the streamwise within it, and then you see your elongated and very strong upper levels here. Again, really a ton of visibility in 21Z. This is when it gets crazy. Look at the 21Z standing there in the middle of Minnesota. That is a really kind of scary photograph. And you can kind of see it kind of goes all the way towards near like Minneapolis, all the way as far as practically near to the southwest of Duluth. So it goes pretty far up there, Minnesota here. And again, eventually this will kind of run up by around 23, maybe even 0Z when it starts to become more of a elevated wind risk and it upscales. Actually, I want to skip this one relatively. Let's see. I want to shorten this video up here. And then we'll be looking at the lapse rates really quickly here. So you can see lapse rates, and as this event is hours from beginning, you can kind of see your lapse rates at 17Z are around 7.5, 7.6 in your mid levels, and then 7.6, maybe 7.7, 7.8 in the mid levels. These are your mid level lapse rates here. And this is as the event just begins, and then by 19Z, you can start to see these storms will develop. But you have before your main events, you have around nearly 8 degrees Celsius in some points in southwest Minnesota of just untouched instability here. So once you get these storms kind of rolling at around 1920Z, you're going to be seeing a really good instability here. And obviously values, like I said, we could see that very large hail risk, and that will obviously make its way down there towards Nebraska and Iowa. You can see 8.4 kind of mid-levels before the main event starts, so definitely be seeing some pretty widespread. And the last widespread and monstrous hail. And then the last thing I want to look at is the overall, kind of your overall composite relativity, which actually it does have your updraft helicity here. So this is going to kind of give us a better idea of which storms are actually rotating or have rotating updrafts. And you can see by 18Z, you can start to get your first kind of little multicellular storms starting to develop here. And these will actually be pretty large hailers. So South Dakota, you guys will start to see some really large hailers and wind storms, or winds that have containing very strong wind gusts, and as well we will have a tornado potential there, especially by around 21Z. Your storms are starting to merge towards Minnesota, so I think we're going to be seeing a lot of tornado warnings here between the border of South Dakota leading into Minnesota. But you can kind of see these little cells. These are the little cells I'm talking about. Any cell here is able and is in the environment to produce a tornado, especially even a strong tornado. So like I said, you can see a little teeny little cell like this. That teeny little cell in the middle of nowhere could very well be the storm. I mean, who knows? I mean, like I said, you're gonna be seeing multiple prefrontal kind of supercells along that big chunk of very big kind of just chunk of storms that are going to be rotating, obviously. And again, by 23 is easier, so you kind of start to obviously upscale. However, this will obviously have as well tornado potential. Just because it upscales doesn't mean your tornado threat is dead. It will mean your wind threat will start to take over. But again, you could obviously see significant tornadoes within QLCSs and squalls, and obviously that's going to make its way, and that's why we had that kind of the 10 sig up here for tornadoes, because of that large amount of helicity and instability we're going to be seeing up there. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys later.